He thought he had discarded a broken woman. He thought his life was perfect with a supermodel on his arm and a CEO title on his door. But Liam Cole made one fatal miscalculation. He underestimated the woman who built him. Just as he was laughing in her face on the red carpet, the sky tore open. A custom Gulfstream helicopter didn't just land, it silenced the city. And stepping out wasn't just a billionaire, it was the man who was about to make Liam regret the day he was born. She wasn't just his ex-wife anymore. She was the mother of an heir, and she had an army behind her. You do not want to miss how this ends. The sound of the pen scratching against the paper sounded like a scream in the quiet lawyer's office. It was a sterile room in downtown Manhattan, overlooking the grey sludge of a rainy Tuesday. Audrey Miller didn't look up as she signed her name. She kept her eyes focused on the ink, watching it dry, solidifying the end of 7 years. 7 years of supporting him while he finished his MBA. 7 years of editing his proposals late into the night. 7 years of cheap ramen so he could buy Italian suits to look the part. "There," Liam Cole said, snatching the papers away the moment her pen lifted. He didn't look at her. He was looking at his reflection in the window, adjusting the collar of his bespoke Tom Ford suit, a suit Audrey had bought him with her bonus last Christmas. Finally. Honestly, Audrey, this took longer than it needed to. My legal team billable hours are insane. Audrey finally looked up. Her face was pale, dark circles bruising the skin under her eyes. She felt a wave of nausea roll through her, but she swallowed it down. "I just wanted to make sure I wasn't signing away the rights to my own designs, Liam. The house concepts, the Glass Horizon project. You listed them as marital assets." Liam laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Assets? Audrey, those were scribbles. I turned them into business. I'm the one who sold them to the board. You were just doodling. Be grateful I'm letting you keep your car. It's a junker, but it's yours." He stood up, checking his Rolex Submariner. "I have to go. Sasha is waiting downstairs in the Aston Martin. We have a fitting for the engagement party." The name hit Audrey like a physical blow. Sasha Vane, the 22-year-old runway model who had graced the cover of Vogue last month. The woman Liam had been mentoring for 6 months before he suddenly decided he needed to find himself outside of his marriage. "You're getting engaged?" Audrey whispered, her voice cracking. "We've been divorced for 30 seconds. "Why wait?" Liam smirked, grabbing his briefcase. "Success loves speed, Audrey. You never understood that. You were always too slow, too cautious, too domestic. Sasha fits my future. You were barely enough for my past." He walked out without looking back. Audrey sat in the silence for a long time. She placed a hand on her stomach. The nausea wasn't just stress. She hadn't told him. She had found out yesterday morning, holding a plastic stick in a shaking hand in the bathroom of the small studio apartment she was now renting. She was pregnant. Liam had always said he didn't want kids. "Not yet," he'd say. "Not until I make my first 10 million. Now he was engaged to a supermodel, and Audrey was alone, unemployed, blacklisted from the major firms because Liam had spread rumors about her being unstable and carrying the child of a man who looked at her like she was trash. She walked out of the office and into the rain. A massive billboard in Times Square caught her eye. It was an ad for Cole & Vane luxury real estate. Liam's face, airbrushed to perfection, next to Sasha's striking, predatory beauty. The tagline read, "Perfection belongs to the bold." Audrey pulled her coat tighter. She had $40 in her bank account. She had a baby on the way. And she had a fire igniting in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. Perfection belongs to the bold, she thought, wiping rain from her cheek. No, Liam. Survival belongs to the bold. And I'm going to survive you. 3 months later. The nausea had passed, replaced by a strange, ferocious hunger, and a small, barely noticeable bump that Audrey hid under oversized sweaters. She was working freelance now, using a pseudonym, AM Designs, doing grunt work for smaller contractors. It was humiliating, considering she had practically designed the architecture for Liam's entire real estate empire, but it paid for groceries and prenatal vitamins. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the courier arrived at her tiny apartment in Brooklyn. He wasn't a regular mailman. He was wearing a uniform with a gold crest, and he held a velvet envelope. "Audrey Miller?" he asked. "Yes." "Delivery from the executive office of the Helios Group." Audrey frowned. The Helios Group was the most powerful conglomerate in the world. They dealt in aerospace, private defense, and luxury aviation. Their CEO was a ghost, Damon Hunt, a man who was rumored to be a billionaire 3 times over, who spent more time in the air than on the ground. She took the envelope. Inside was a heavy cardstock invitation, embossed with gold leaf. "You are cordially invited to the Obsidian Gala, celebrating the launch of the Hunt Stream G700. Venue, the Pierre Hotel, Grand Ballroom. Saturday, 8:00 p.m. There was a handwritten note clipped to the back. "Ms. Miller, I reviewed the blueprints for the Glass Horizon complex. The structural integrity was brilliant. The aesthetic was transcendent. I was told Liam Cole designed it. Then I looked at the revision logs. I saw your initials on every foundational edit. I don't like liars, and I don't like wasted talent. Come to the gala. We have business to discuss. DH." Audrey dropped the card on her kitchen table. Damon Hunt knew? She looked at the date. The gala was in 2 days. It was the event of the season. Liam would definitely be there. It was exactly the kind of place he would flaunt Sasha. Panic flared in her chest. She couldn't go. She had nothing to wear. She looked tired, worn out. She was pregnant with her ex-husband's baby, while he was likely planning a wedding with a supermodel. She walked to the mirror. She lifted her sweater. The bump was there. A small, quiet promise. "He called me domestic," she whispered to her reflection. "He said I was barely enough." She thought about the Glass Horizon. That project was her soul. It was her design for a sustainable, light-filled community center that Liam had turned into high-priced condos. He had stolen her work. If Damon Hunt knew the truth, this was her only chance. Not just for revenge, but for a future for her child. She took the last of her savings, money she had been hoarding for the hospital bill, and went to a vintage shop in the West Village. She didn't buy a gown. She bought fabric, silk chiffon in a deep midnight blue and a roll of silver thread. For 48 hours, Audrey didn't sleep. She sewed. She went back to her roots. She wasn't just an architect. She was an artist. She draped the fabric over her own body, pinning and stitching. She designed a dress that flowed like water, with a high empire waist that concealed her bump but accentuated the elegance of her neck and shoulders. It was modest, yet striking. Saturday night arrived with a storm. Thunder rattled the windows of her apartment. She did her own hair, pulling it back into a sleek, low bun. She applied simple makeup, highlighting her eyes, which, despite the fatigue, burned with a new determination. She took a cab to the pier. The line of cars was staggering. Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, Maybachs. She asked the cab driver to drop her a block away to save on the fare. Walking the last block in the drizzle, holding an umbrella, she felt small. But as she rounded the corner to the hotel entrance, the lights of the paparazzi blinded her. The red carpet was a shark tank, and there they were, Right in the center of the carpet, basking in the flashbulbs, was Liam. He looked impeccable in a white tuxedo jacket. Hanging on his arm was Sasha Vane. Sasha was wearing a dress that was barely there. Sheer diamonds and gold mesh. It was stunning, aggressive, and screamed money. She looked like a trophy. Liam looked like the hunter who had bagged her. The reporters were shouting questions. "Liam, is it true the wedding is in Como?" "Sasha, who are you wearing?" Liam beamed, his teeth white and perfect. "Yes, Lake Como in the spring. We want to start our dynasty in the right place." Audrey took a breath and stepped onto the red carpet. She wasn't famous. The cameras didn't click for her initially. She was just a woman in a blue dress. She tried to slip past them, heading for the entrance. But Liam saw her. His smile dropped. He nudged Sasha, pointing. "Well, well," Liam called out, his voice loud enough to carry over the crowd. The reporters quieted down, sensing drama. "If it isn't the past." Sasha turned, her eyes scanning Audrey up and down with a look of pure disdain. "Oh, is this the first wife? The one who did the doodles?" Liam laughed, stepping away from the press line to block Audrey's path. "Audrey, I didn't know they were letting the general public in tonight. Did you win a radio contest? Or are you catering?" A few photographers snickered. Flashbulbs popped, capturing Audrey's humiliation. "I was invited, Liam," Audrey said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled. "Invited?" Sasha laughed, a high, tinkling sound. "By who?" "The janitorial staff. Look at her dress, Liam. It looks like she made it out of curtains. It's so sad." "Go home, Audrey," Liam hissed, leaning in close, his breath smelling of expensive scotch. "You're embarrassing yourself. You don't belong here. You never did. Look at you. You look tired. You look old. Just leave before security escorts you out." Audrey clutched her purse. The urge to run was overwhelming. He was right. She was out of her depth. She was surrounded by sharks, and she was bleeding. "She's not going anywhere." The voice didn't come from the red carpet. It came from the sky. A low, thrumming sound vibrated in their chests. The wind picked up, whipping Sasha's hair into her face. The crowd looked up. Descending from the dark clouds, cutting through the rain, was a helicopter. But not just any helicopter. It was a matte black, military-grade executive chopper, sleek and terrifying, the side emblazoned with a gold H. It ignored the designated helipad on the roof. It hovered directly over the open plaza in front of the hotel, the downdraft forcing the paparazzi to brace themselves. Liam's hair was blown into a mess. Sasha shrieked, holding her dress down. The helicopter touched down with surgical precision right on the red carpet, crushing the velvet ropes. The door slid open. Two bodyguards the size of vending machines stepped out first. Then a man emerged. He was tall, over 6'4". He wore a black suit that cost more than Liam's entire real estate portfolio. He had dark hair, slightly greying at the temples, and eyes that looked like shattered ice. A hush fell over the crowd. "That's Damon Hunt," a photographer whispered. "The Jet King." Damon didn't look at the cameras. He didn't look at Liam. He walked straight toward Audrey. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. He stopped in front of her. He looked at her homemade dress, then at her face. His expression was unreadable, terrifyingly stoic. "You're late," Damon said. His voice was deep, a baritone that seemed to rattle Audrey's bones. The traffic," Audrey stammered. Damon turned his head slowly, his gaze finally landing on Liam. Liam, usually so confident, looked suddenly small. He straightened his tie nervously. "Mr. Hunt," Liam said, extending a hand. "Profound honor. I'm Liam Cole. We've been trying to get a meeting with your acquisitions department regarding the—" Damon didn't take the hand. He didn't even blink. "You're in my way." Liam froze. Excuse me? "You are standing in the way of my guest of honor," Damon said, loud enough for every camera to pick up. He turned back to Audrey and offered his arm. Unlike Liam's aggressive grip, Damon's gesture was courtly, respectful. "Shall we, Ms. Miller?" Damon asked. "The board is waiting for you. We can't start the presentation without the lead architect." Audrey stared at him. Then she looked at Liam. Liam's mouth was hanging open. Sasha looked furious. Audrey took Damon's arm. "Yes, Mr. Hunt, we shall." As Damon led her up the stairs, past the stunned ex-husband and the fuming model, he leaned down and whispered in her ear, "Nice dress. But next time, let me send the car. My heir shouldn't be walking in the rain." Audrey stumbled. She looked up at him in shock. He knew. The grand ballroom of the Pierre was a galaxy of crystal chandeliers and old money. The air smelled of expensive perfume, truffle oil, and quiet judgment. As Damon Hunt escorted Audrey into the room, the hum of conversation died instantly. It was as if someone had cut the power. Audrey felt the weight of 100 pairs of eyes. She gripped Damon's arm tighter, her knuckles white against the dark fabric of his suit. "Keep your head up," Damon murmured, his voice low and vibrating against her side. "You built the concepts that half the people in this room are trying to invest in. You are the most valuable person here." "You called my baby your heir," Audrey whispered back, barely moving her lips. "Why did you say that?" Damon didn't look at her. He kept his eyes scanning the room, nodding acknowledgement to a senator and a tech mogul. "Because Liam Cole is a shark. If he smells blood, if he knows you are pregnant and vulnerable, he will tear you apart. He will sue for custody just to spite you. But if the world thinks that child belongs to the Helios Empire, he won't touch you. Sharks don't attack leviathans, Audrey." Audrey's breath hitched. He was protecting her. A man she had never met until 10 minutes ago was offering her a shield she hadn't known she needed. "Why?" she asked. "Because I hate thieves," Damon said simply. "And I need the best architect in New York for what comes next." Before she could respond, the crowd parted again. Liam and Sasha had made it inside. Liam looked flushed, his composure cracking. He abandoned Sasha by the champagne fountain and marched straight toward Damon and Audrey. "Damon," Liam said, his voice tight, trying to sound authoritative but failing. "We need to clear up a misunderstanding. Audrey is my ex-wife. She has a history of mental instability. I don't know what she's told you, but bringing her here reflects poorly on the Helios brand." Damon stopped. He slowly turned his entire body to face Liam. He looked at Liam with the boredom of a man watching a fly buzz against a window pane. "Instability?" Damon repeated. "Yes," Liam pressed, gaining confidence. "She couldn't handle the pressure of our marriage. She had delusions of grandeur, claiming my work was hers. It was sad, really." Damon reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded square of blue paper. It wasn't a napkin. It was a blueprint schematic. He unfolded it with a snap. "This," Damon said, holding up the paper, "is the structural lattice for the glass horizon load-bearing walls. It's a revolutionary design. It uses tension rather than compression to hold the weight." Liam paled. "Yes, my design." "Really?" Damon raised an eyebrow. "Because I had my forensic accountants go through your firm's digital trash. We found the metadata. This file was created on a laptop registered to Audrey Miller 3 years ago. The user log shows edits made at 3 August a.m., 4 a.m., usually while you were, according to your own credit card statements, at bars in Soho." A ripple of murmurs went through the nearby crowd. A few investors looked at Liam with narrowed eyes. That's private information, Liam sputtered. You're trying to sell me a building, Liam, Damon said coldly. I don't buy buildings. I buy the minds that build them. And yours is empty. Damon turned away, dismissing him completely. He led Audrey toward the stage. Come, it's time. They walked up the stairs to the podium. The microphone was waiting. Damon adjusted it, the feedback whine silencing the few remaining whispers. Ladies and gentlemen, Damon announced, his voice booming. Tonight we were supposed to launch a jet. But plans change. Tonight, Helios Group is announcing our entry into sustainable urban living. We are breaking ground on the Aero City project in Dubai next month. The crowd gasped. This was a multi-billion-dollar pivot. And, Damon continued, placing a hand on the small of Audrey's back, pushing her gently into the spotlight. I would like to introduce the chief lead architect of the project, the genius who has been ghostwriting the skyline of this city for 7 years, Ms. Audrey Miller. Applause broke out, tentative at first, then thunderous as people realized the shift in power. Audrey stood there, blinded by the lights. For the first time in years, she wasn't the wife in the shadows. She was the creator. She looked down at the crowd. She saw Liam. He was standing near the exit, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Beside him, Sasha looked bored, checking her phone, clearly already calculating if Liam was still worth the effort. Audrey took the microphone. She didn't have a speech prepared. She spoke from the heart. She spoke about light, about structure, about building homes that didn't just house people, but healed them. When she finished, the room erupted. As she stepped off the stage, adrenaline coursing through her, the nausea returned. The room spun, the stress, the lights, the pregnancy. It was too much. Her knees buckled. She didn't hit the floor. Damon caught her. His arms were iron bands. I've got you, he said, lifting her effortlessly into his arms as the crowd gasped again. Get the car, he barked at his security team. Now. Audrey woke up in a bed that was softer than clouds. The room was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. It wasn't a hotel room. It was a residence. The decor was masculine, minimalist, dark wood, slate grey, and chrome. She sat up, panic spiking. She touched her stomach. The doctor said you're dehydrated and exhausted. The baby is fine. Audrey jumped. Damon was sitting in a leather armchair in the corner of the room, reading a tablet. He had discarded his suit jacket and tie. The top button of his white shirt was undone, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin. He looked less like a corporate titan and more like a weary warrior. Where am I? Audrey asked, her voice raspy. My penthouse, 432 Park Avenue, Damon said, not looking up. I couldn't take you back to your apartment. The press is already camping outside your building. Liam leaked your address about 20 minutes after we left the gala. Audrey closed her eyes. He's trying to punish me. He's trying to break you, Damon corrected. He stood up and poured a glass of water, walking over to hand it to her. He gave an interview to TMZ an hour ago. He claims you seduced me to get a job. He claims you're pregnant with another man's child, and you're trying to pin it on him to get alimony. Audrey's hands shook so hard water spilled onto the sheets. He knows? How does he know? He guessed, and he's spinning the narrative. He's painting you as the villain, Audrey. The cheating, gold-digging ex-wife. Damon sat on the edge of the bed. His blue eyes were intense. If you go out there alone, he will destroy you in the court of public opinion, and then he will take you to family court. He'll argue you have no income, no stable home, and that your affair with me proves you're unfit. He will take the baby. Tears streamed down Audrey's face. I have nothing to fight him with. I have $40. You have me, Damon said. The room went silent. The city lights twinkled indifferently outside. What? Audrey whispered. I need something too, Audrey, Damon said, his voice dropping to a businesslike cadence, though his eyes remained soft. My board of directors is old-fashioned. They are nervous about the Dubai project. They think I'm too reckless, too much of a playboy bachelor to handle a $1 trillion infrastructure deal. They want to see stability. They want a family man. He leaned in closer. I propose a contract, a marriage, on paper. Audrey stared at him, stunned. You want me to fake marry you? I want us to help each other, Damon corrected. You become Mrs. Damon Hunt. Immediate access to my legal team, my security, my assets. Liam can't sue a billionaire's wife for being unstable and broke. We claim the child is mine. We say we've been seeing each other privately for months. It explains the divorce. It explains the pregnancy. It makes Liam look like the bitter ex. And in return, Audrey asked, her heart pounding against her ribs. In return, you design the Aero City. You give me the stability my board needs to sign the check. We stay married for 2 years. Then we divorce quietly. You get a $100 million settlement and full custody. I get my city. It was insanity. It was a lie. But as Audrey thought about Liam's smirk, about Sasha's cruelty, and about the tiny life growing inside her that deserved a fortress to grow up in, it felt like the only choice. He will know it's a lie, Audrey said. Liam knows the timeline. Liam knows what we tell him, Damon said darkly. But we have to sell it. We have to make the world believe it, starting tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow, Damon said, standing up and walking to the window, looking out at his empire. Tomorrow we go to Tiffany's to buy a ring that will make Sasha Vane's diamond look like broken glass. And then we go to brunch where Liam is meeting his investors. Audrey looked at his broad back. This man was dangerous. He was manipulative, but he was on her side. Damon. He turned back. Why me? You could hire an actress, a model. Damon looked at her for a long moment. A shadow passed over his face, something ancient and painful. Because, Audrey, I know what it's like to have someone steal your legacy, and I promised myself if I ever saw it happening again, I'd burn the thief to the ground. He didn't explain further. He just nodded at the door. Get some sleep. The war starts at 9 a.m. Audrey lay back down, her hand on her stomach. She was entering a golden cage, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she held the key. The morning sun hit the pavement of Fifth Avenue, but it felt cold compared to the ice Damon Hunt was about to put on Audrey's finger. They were in the private viewing room of Harry Winston. It was a hushed, velvet-lined sanctuary where the price tags were never displayed, because if you had to ask, you were in the wrong room. The jeweler, a man named Mr. Sterling with white gloves and a monocle that wasn't for show, placed a black velvet tray on the mahogany table. Mr. Hunt, Sterling murmured. As requested. The Midnight Collection. Audrey stared. The rings were massive, but one stood out. It wasn't a traditional white diamond. It was a sapphire, deep and dark as the ocean, surrounded by a halo of rare, pink diamonds. It looked like a galaxy trapped in stone. That one, Damon said immediately. He didn't ask Audrey. He knew. He picked it up. He took Audrey's left hand. His touch was warm, contrasting with the cold metal of the ring. He slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. You knew my ring size? Audrey asked, her voice trembling. I know everything about my investments, Damon said, though his thumb lingered on her knuckle, rubbing it gently. This ring belonged to my grandmother. She was the only woman my grandfather ever feared. It's not just jewelry, Audrey. It's armor. Wear it like a weapon. Audrey looked at the stone. It felt heavy. Real. For a second, looking into Damon's eyes, the lines between the lie and reality blurred. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Now," Damon said, dropping her hand and checking his watch. "Brunch." Le Coucou was the place to be seen on a Sunday in New York. It was also, not coincidentally, where Liam Cole was currently holding a high-stakes meeting with the investors for his new venture, Cole Towers. Damon's security team had done the recon. They knew exactly which table Liam had reserved, the center booth, the power seat. When Damon and Audrey walked in, the restaurant didn't just go quiet, the atmosphere shifted. It was the presence of true power. Damon walked with a predator's grace, and Audrey, wearing a cream-colored cashmere dress that cost more than Liam's car, walked beside him, her hand resting on his forearm, the sapphire ring catching every light in the room. The hostess, flustered, tried to lead them to a private corner. "No," Damon said calmly. "We'll take that table." He pointed to an empty table right next to Liam's booth. They sat. Liam was mid-sentence, pitching a concept that sounded suspiciously like one of Audrey's old ideas. He froze when he saw them. Sasha wasn't there. This was business. Liam was with 3 older men in grey suits, the investors. "Audrey?" Liam choked out. He looked at the ring. His eyes bulged. What is that?" "It's a ring, Liam," Audrey said, surprised by how steady her voice was. "I assume you remember what those look like, though you usually prefer them to be temporary." One of the investors, a heavy-set man named Mr. Henderson, looked from Liam to Damon. "Mr. Hunt. Damon Hunt." Damon didn't look at the man. He picked up the menu. "The Eggs Benedict is acceptable here, darling," he said to Audrey. "Though not as good as what we had in Paris." "Mr. Hunt!" Mr. Henderson stood up, practically tripping over his chair to get to their table. "I'm Jim Henderson. I manage the pension fund for—" "I know who you are, Jim," Damon said, finally looking up. His eyes were cold. "You're the man about to throw $50 million into a sinkhole." The room went dead silent. Liam stood up, his face red. "Damon, please," Liam hissed. "Don't bring personal vendettas into business." "It's not personal, Liam. It's due diligence," Damon said, leaning back. He looked at the investors. "You're investing in Cole Towers, correct? A design based on a tension lattice structure?" "Yes," Henderson said, looking confused. "It's a revolutionary design." "It is," Damon nodded. He reached over and took Audrey's hand, lifting it so the ring flashed under the chandelier. "And the architect who invented that structure is currently wearing my grandmother's ring and carrying my child, and she has signed an exclusive contract with Helios Group for the next decade." Damon's smile was razor-sharp. "So, if Liam builds that tower," Damon continued, "my legal team will issue an injunction that will halt construction for 5 years. Your money will be frozen in litigation until the concrete rots. But by all means, write the check." Henderson looked at Liam. The other investors closed their portfolios. "Liam," Henderson said, his voice icy, "you told us you owned the IP." "I do. We were married. It's marital property," Liam shouted, losing control. "Actually," Audrey spoke up. She took a sip of water. "I filed the patent for the tension lattice under my maiden name 3 years ago. I just never enforced it. Until now. It was a lie. She hadn't patented it. But Liam didn't know that. He was too arrogant to check." The investors stood up. "We're done here, Liam." As the investors walked out, leaving Liam alone at a table full of expensive food he couldn't pay for, Damon signaled the waiter. "Champagne for the lady," Damon said. "Non-alcoholic, of course, for the baby." Liam stared at them, defeated, humiliated, and broken. But in his eyes, Audrey saw something that terrified her. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was hatred. "You think you've won," Liam whispered, leaning across the gap between tables. "But I know the dates, Audrey. I know when we were together. I know that baby isn't his. And when I prove it, this whole house of cards falls down." Damon stood up, looming over Liam. "Try it," Damon said softly. "And I will buy every building you own and turn them into parking lots." Damon offered his hand to Audrey. "Ready, my love?" "Ready," Audrey said. But as they walked out, Audrey felt a chill. Liam wasn't going to stop. He had nothing left to lose. 2 weeks later, life in the penthouse had settled into a strange, domestic rhythm. Audrey was working harder than she ever had in her life. She had turned the library into a studio. The Aero City project was massive, a self-sustaining eco-city designed for the desert climate. It was the kind of work she had dreamed of doing before Liam had reduced her to designing luxury bathrooms for his rich friends. Damon was unexpected. He was a ghost during the day, running Helios, but at night he was there. He didn't treat her like a business partner in private. He treated her like precious cargo. One rainy Tuesday night, Audrey was hunched over her drafting table, her back aching. It was 2 a.m. A hand placed a mug of herbal tea on the table. She jumped. Damon was standing there, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. It was the most casual she had ever seen him. "You need to sleep," he said. "The city isn't going anywhere. The baby needs rest." "I have to get the schematics for the water filtration system done," Audrey sighed, rubbing her eyes. "The board meeting is in 2 days. If I don't impress them, they won't approve the budget, and your marriage investment will be for nothing." Damon pulled a chair up and sat next to her. "Stop." He spun her chair around so she was facing him. "You think I did this for the budget?" he asked. "You said you needed a stable image," Audrey said. "I can buy stability," Damon said. He looked at her, his eyes searching her face. "I did this because I saw a woman who was brilliant being told she was nothing, and it reminded me of my father." Audrey softened. "Your father?" Damon looked away, staring at the rain against the glass. "He was an aeronautics engineer. Brilliant. He designed the engine that powers half the commercial jets in the world today. But he was trusting. He had a partner, a man named Silas. Silas stole the blueprints, patented them, and sued my father for infringement." Damon's jaw tightened. "My father died bankrupt and broken, watching another man become a billionaire on his genius. I was 12. I swore that I would never let a thief win again. When I saw Liam taking credit for your work, I couldn't stand by." Audrey reached out, instinctively covering his hand with hers. "Damon, I'm so sorry." He looked at her hand, then up at her eyes. The air in the room changed. It became heavy, charged with something that wasn't about business or revenge. He leaned in. "Audrey, you are not just a part of a deal. You are the most talented person I've ever met. And you are—" He stopped. His gaze dropped to her lips. Audrey's heart hammered. She wanted him to kiss her. Not for the cameras. For real. Just as he began to lean closer, the elevator dinged. Damon pulled back instantly, the mask of the CEO slamming back into place. It was his head of security, a man named Roach. He looked grim. "Sir," Roach said, stepping into the library, "I'm sorry to disturb you, but we have a situation." "What is it?" Damon stood up, his voice hard. "We just received a courier from the family court," Roach said, holding up a manila envelope. Liam Cole has filed an emergency motion. Audrey stood up, clutching the edge of the drafting table. What motion? Paternity, Roach said. He's petitioning for a court-ordered DNA test, and he's leaked Audrey's medical records from her OB-GYN to the New York Post. They're going to run the story tomorrow morning. Audrey felt the blood drain from her face. My records? That's illegal. He doesn't care, Damon said. He took the envelope from Roach and ripped it open. He scanned the documents. He claims the conception date on the ultrasound proves the baby is his, not mine. If the world finds out the baby is his, Audrey whispered, the lie falls apart. The board will fire you for fraud. You'll lose the Dubai deal. And you, Damon said, looking at her with a terrifying intensity, will lose the baby. Liam is asking for full custody on the grounds that you are mentally unstable and engaging in a fraudulent conspiracy. Audrey swayed. We can't let him do this. We won't, Damon said. He tossed the papers onto the desk. Roach, get the car. We're going to the Hamptons. The Hamptons? Audrey asked. Now? It's 2 a.m. We need to get out of the city before the press surrounds the building, Damon said. And we need to prepare. Liam wants a war? I'm going to give him a nuclear winter. But the DNA test, Audrey cried. We can't fake a DNA test, Damon. Biology doesn't lie. Damon walked over to her. He grabbed her shoulders. Audrey, listen to me. I own the lab that processes 70% of the DNA tests in this state. Audrey stared at him. What? I told you, Damon said, his eyes dark and dangerous. I don't play fair. I play to win. But to do this, to alter the record, it's a felony. If we do this, there is no going back. We are partners in crime, real crime. He paused, searching her face. Are you in? Audrey thought about Liam taking her baby. She thought about Sasha raising her child. She thought about the man standing in front of her, who had offered her a life she never dreamed possible. She looked at the sapphire on her finger. I'm in, she whispered. Good, Damon said. Pack a bag. We're leaving in 5 minutes. But as they rushed to the elevator, Audrey felt a sharp pain in her abdomen, a cramp that doubled her over. Audrey? Damon caught her arm. It hurts, she gasped. Damon. Something's wrong. She looked down. There was a spot of blood on the white tile floor. Damon's face went white. He scooped her up in his arms, forgetting the files, forgetting Liam, forgetting everything. Hospital! He roared at Roach. Now! The elevator doors closed on them, leaving the court papers scattered on the floor, the evidence of their conspiracy waiting for anyone to find. The waiting room of the Mount Sinai Emergency Department was a place where time didn't just slow down. It ceased to exist, replaced by the suffocating weight of uncertainty. For 3 agonizing hours, Damon Hunt, a man who commanded fleets of jets, moved markets with a whisper, and possessed a net worth that rivaled small nations, was reduced to nothing more than a man pacing a scuffed linoleum floor. His power, usually a tangible force around him, felt useless here. He couldn't buy his way out of this. He couldn't negotiate with biology. He could only wait. Security teams had effectively locked down the entire wing. The hospital administration, terrified of the Helios legal department, had given them a wide berth. Outside the main entrance, however, it was a circus. The press was swarming like vultures who had smelled blood from miles away. Liam's leaked story had hit the internet with the force of a bomb. The headlines flashing across millions of screens were vicious, designed to maximize clicks and destroy reputations. Billionaire's fake heir, ex-wife, rushed to ER after paternity scandal, and the gold digger's gamble, DNA war explodes. Damon didn't care about the headlines. He didn't care about the panicked text messages from his board of directors or the PR team having a meltdown at headquarters. He only cared about the ominous silence behind the double swing doors. Every time a nurse walked by, his head snapped up, heart hammering against his ribs, only to be met with averted eyes. Finally, the doors pushed open with a heavy whoosh. A doctor emerged, stripping off latex gloves. Dr. Evans was the best high-risk obstetrician in the city. Damon had ensured she was flown in by helicopter the moment they left the penthouse. She looked grave, her face etched with fatigue. "Mr. Hunt." Damon stopped his pacing instantly. He felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. "Is she—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Is she okay? The baby?" Dr. Evans sighed, rubbing her temples. "Audrey is stable. It was a severe placental abruption, likely triggered by a spike in blood pressure due to extreme acute stress. We managed to stop the bleeding before it became critical, but she needs absolute bed rest for the foreseeable future. She is weak, Damon. Very weak." Damon let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "And the baby?" "The baby is a fighter." Dr. Evans offered a small, tired smile. "The fetal heart rate dropped significantly during the intake, which was terrifying, but it has stabilized. He's hanging on. But it was a close call. Too close. Another 20 minutes, and we would be having a very different conversation." Damon nodded, his jaw tightening until it ached. Liam had done this. Liam, with his petty jealousy and vindictive leaks, had almost killed them. "Can I see her?" Damon asked, his voice rough. "Briefly. She's awake and she's asking for you, but do not upset her. No business talk. No stress." Damon walked into the dim hospital room. The only light came from the glowing monitors that beeped in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. Audrey looked tiny in the hospital bed, her skin almost translucent against the white sheets. Wires and tubes seemed to engulf her small frame. She turned her head slowly as he entered. She looked pale, exhausted, but her eyes, those resilient, intelligent eyes, were fierce. "Damon," she whispered, her voice barely a scratch in the silence. He sat by the bed, taking her hand carefully, as if she were made of glass. "I'm here. You're safe. The baby is safe." Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes, tracking hot paths down her temples. "Liam won't stop," she said, her voice trembling. "He almost killed us, Damon. The stress, the reporters at the apartment. He did this. He won't stop until he takes the baby." "I know," Damon said. He squeezed her hand. His voice was no longer the smooth baritone of a businessman. It was cold, hard, and final. It was the voice of an executioner sharpening his blade. "Rest, Audrey. Do not think about Liam. By the time you wake up, Liam Cole will not be a problem. He will be a memory." "What are you going to do?" she asked, fear flickering in her gaze. "You can't fight the DNA test. It's science." "I'm going to tell the truth," Damon said, his face unreadable. Audrey's eyes widened in panic. "But the timeline, the DNA. If you tell the truth, we lose everything. The contract, the company, your reputation." "Trust me," Damon said, leaning down to kiss her forehead. His lips were warm against her cool skin. "Just trust me. I have never lost a war, and I don't intend to start now." He stood up and walked out of the room without looking back. Outside, his head of security, Roach, was waiting. "Get the jet ready," Damon ordered. "And get the legal team. I want the press conference at JFK in 3 hours. Invite everyone. CNN, Fox, The Times, even the tabloids, especially the tabloids." The next morning, the press conference. Damon didn't hold the press conference at a sterile hotel ballroom or a corporate office. He held it on the tarmac of JFK Airport, directly in front of the massive Helios private hangar. The wind whipped across the concrete, smelling of jet fuel and rain. Behind him stood the sleek, matte-black Gulfstream G700, the symbol of his unreachable power. Every news outlet in the world seemed to be there. The sea of cameras and satellite trucks was immense, and right in the front row, standing with his lawyer and looking smugly victorious, was Liam Cole. Liam wore a suit that was too shiny, his face glowing with the anticipation of his final triumph. He thought Damon was about to capitulate. He thought the billionaire was about to admit defeat, pay him off, and beg for silence. Damon walked up to the podium. He looked tired, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from the hospital. He didn't look like a polished CEO. He looked like a man who had walked through fire. He gripped the sides of the podium, his knuckles white. "Yesterday," Damon began, his voice amplified by the speakers, echoing across the tarmac and drowning out the wind. "My fiancée, Audrey Miller, nearly lost her life. My unborn child nearly died. This was not an accident. This was a direct result of a campaign of harassment and psychological terror orchestrated by a man who cannot accept his own failures." He raised a hand and pointed a finger directly at Liam. The collective gaze of 50 cameras swiveled to the ex-husband. "Liam Cole claims he is the father of Audrey's child. He claims the timeline proves it. He claims that I am a fraud," Liam shouted from the crowd, emboldened by the cameras. "Because it does. We were married until 3 months ago. You only met her at the gala. You can't change the calendar, Hunt." Damon smiled. It was a terrifying smile. "Is that what you think, Liam?" Damon pressed a button on a small remote in his hand. A massive LED screen set up behind him flickered to life. It was a video. Grainy, black and white security footage. It looked like CCTV from a high-end establishment. The timestamp in the corner read October 14th, 10:42 p.m. That date was 8 months ago. The video showed the interior of a dimly lit bar. The decor was unmistakably British. Dark wood, velvet booths. In the frame, sitting alone at a secluded table, was Audrey. She was looking over blueprints, a glass of water untouched in front of her. Then a man walked into the frame. It was Damon. He approached the table. He didn't look like a stranger. He sat down across from her. They talked. They leaned in close. Audrey laughed, a genuine, unguarded laugh that Liam hadn't seen in years. Damon reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The intimacy was undeniable. The crowd gasped. The reporters began frantically typing on their phones. "Audrey and I did not meet at the gala," Damon lied smoothly, narrating the footage with absolute conviction. "We met 8 months ago in London. She was there for a design conference. I was there for a discreet acquisition. We had a connection. A brief, passionate affair while she was separated from you in all but name, while you were already busy mentoring your 19-year-old models." The video was technically real footage of them meeting. Damon had met her once, briefly, years ago at a convention, though they hadn't spoken. But his tech team, the best cyber warfare experts money could buy, had deep-faked the date overlay. They had aged the timestamp, added digital noise, and crafted a perfect, unassailable lie. "We kept it secret," Damon continued, his voice dropping to a solemn register. "Because Audrey is a woman of honor. She wanted to give her marriage one last try. She wanted to be faithful to her vows, even if you weren't. But when she returned to New York, she realized she was pregnant. And she realized you were not the man she deserved to raise a child with." Damon looked down at Liam, his eyes burning with contempt. "The baby is mine, Liam. The timeline fits my narrative, not yours. And as for the DNA test you've been demanding?" Damon reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sealed, official-looking envelope. "I took the liberty of having a prenatal non-invasive paternity test done weeks ago for my own estate planning. Here are the results, processed by an independent lab in Switzerland. 9% match to Damon Hunt." He threw the envelope into the crowd of reporters. They scrambled for it like a pack of starving wolves, tearing it open to photograph the document. Of course, the test was fabricated. The lab belonged to a subsidiary of Helios. The video timestamp was faked. The entire story was a construct. But in the court of public opinion, the narrative was unbeatable. The billionaire and the brilliant architect, a secret romance, a tragic near miscarriage caused by a jealous, stalking ex-husband. It was the perfect soap opera, and the world ate it up. Liam stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on dry land. His lawyer was already backing away, physically distancing himself from the blast radius. "This is a lie!" Liam screamed, his voice cracking. "That video is fake. I was tracking her phone. She was in New York that week. I have the GPS logs." The silence that followed was deafening. "You were tracking her phone?" Damon asked, his voice soft, dangerous, and perfectly amplified by the microphone. "You just admitted to stalking your wife? On camera? Installing illegal surveillance software on a spouse's device is a felony in the state of New York, Liam." Sirens began to wail in the distance, getting louder by the second. I... Liam stammered, realizing too late the trap he had walked into. "Mr. Cole," Damon said, his voice ringing with finality. "Helios Group has just bought the debt on your Cole Towers project from your bank. We are calling in the loan. Effectively immediately. You are bankrupt, and I have filed a restraining order against you for stalking, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. If you come within 500 feet of Audrey or my child, I will ensure you spend the rest of your life in a cell." 2 police officers stepped through the parted crowd of reporters, heading straight for Liam. Liam looked around frantically. He looked for Sasha Vane, his model fiancée. But she was gone. She had slipped away the moment the tide turned, disappearing into a waiting Uber. His investors were gone. His reputation was ash. As the police grabbed Liam's arms and led him away in handcuffs, not for the debt, but for the illegal surveillance he had just foolishly admitted to, cameras flashed, capturing his ruin for the morning papers. Damon didn't watch him go. He turned back to the camera, his face stoic. "The AeroCity project breaks ground tomorrow," Damon said simply. "It will be the greatest architectural feat of the century. Designed by Audrey Hunt. My wife." He walked off the stage, ignored the shouted questions, got into his armored car, and drove straight back to the hospital. He had a promise to keep. Wow, I don't know about you, but I was holding my breath until the very last second. Liam got exactly what he deserved, but the real victory was seeing Audrey find her strength, and a man who actually knew her worth. It just goes to show that sometimes, when your life falls apart, it's actually falling into place. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, redemption, and billionaire justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a drama. What did you think of Damon's plan? Was it genius or too risky? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.